Folks. Welcome to week 9. We've survived the midterm, and now it's time to start thinking a little bigger. For the first half of the semester, we've spent a lot of time laying out how there are inequities in our society based on people's various identities, and that each person's unique mixture of identities, their intersections, affects how they're able to move through the world. We're not done exploring this, but I'm sure many of you are now asking, what can be done about this? What we're talking about is the process of creating change, also known as social activism. Anyone can be involved in social activism, regardless of age, income, political affiliation, or any other facet of identity. You get involved by finding a problem you think is important to solve, and then you work with others to solve it. What you mostly need is the ability to see what could be, rather than what is. As an individual, you've already started the first step of social activism by educating yourself. There are two components of educating yourself, though. First, you need to continue to broadly educate yourself, so you have a broad understanding of interrelationships and differing points of view. Read books and watch movies that weren't aimed at you, where the hero doesn't look like you, or come from the same sort of background. Follow people and groups on social media whose experiences are very different from yours. All of this will give you perspective and help create more informed plans and more informed opinions. Second, once you have identified a problem you care about fixing, you need to educate yourself deeply on that problem. Find the thought leaders on social media, read books, articles, and watch videos about the issues, and all of the facets of the issue. Usually when we start trying to solve problems, we have lots of ideas about what will work. Chances are, though, someone has tried those ideas. Find out how it worked out for them. Find out what those who have already been working on this problem think will work now. While you're educating yourself, also find ways to get involved. Look for groups that are already doing work to create change. Volunteer, even if it's doing basic work like stuffing envelopes or making calls. That work needs to be done, and you'd be surprised at how much you learn just by being around other people who also care about the problem. Think about what skills you might have. What are you good at? What do you want to be good at? Volunteering can help you develop a whole range of skills and help you sharpen the skills you already have. Finally, if you can manage it, donate money to the cause, even if it's only a small amount. Every bit helps. Those are all ways to personally get involved, though. How do we actually create change? We do this by organizing people, organizing resources, and creating strategies. There are two major ways to organize. First, you want to appeal to those with power. You want to convince them that the problem you care about is important and get them to make decisions in the way you think will fix the problem. The people with power are often politicians, but they might also be business leaders, administrators, teachers, or community leaders. You can convince them just by asking and having a discussion, or by applying some sort of pressure. Most often, we can apply pressure by organizing large numbers of people to that end. The other way we can create change is by building community. These are all the ways we can help each other directly. It might be mutual aid, where group members help each other. This is powerful and builds strong connections. It might be one-way aid, like charity. This helps people, but it doesn't do as much to build community, because you always have a power dynamic of helper and helpee. We already have a lot of groups like this: neighborhood associations, community groups, religious groups, groups that exist on online only, and so on. What's great about building community is that not only are you helping people, and often getting help in return, but you're also building networks of people who care about something already. So let's get to the nitty-gritty. You've found a social problem you believe should be solved. What's next? The very first thing you need to do is create a plan. We usually call these campaigns. A campaign is a strategy for achieving a specific goal. They usually have a timeline and an identified outcome. To create your campaign plan, start by understanding why solving this problem is important, and make sure you can explain why solving the problem is important. Then identify what outcome you'd like to see, and what short-term goals might move you towards this. For example, I think plastics in the ocean are a really big problem. I can't completely end plastic use worldwide, but I can get Brockport to reduce single-use plastic and switch to biodegradable options where we can't eliminate plastic use. I think this is important because we're seeing larger and larger mounds of plastic waste in the ocean, and all our water is contaminated with microparticles of plastic that affect the health of every living thing. The short-term goals I'd like to achieve are identifying all the single-use plastic on campus, understanding state and federal laws around food safety, and identifying what biodegradable options there might be as alternatives. The next step in creating a campaign is identifying the players that will be part of your strategy. The first question is, who has the power? Is this problem controlled by laws or funding at the local level? Are state or federal laws involved? If that's the case, you probably want to push a representative and other representatives. Is this a private interest? The people with the power might be an owner, a CEO, or a controlling board. You also want to think about what media might have an effect on this issue. Media always has some sort of power. Is this hyper-local or regional? Is there a newspaper that might cover this, or a local TV or radio news station? How can you get them to cover the issue favorably? In our plastic example, I'd want to look at the Brockport administration. Who buys the plastics? Who decides what we buy and allocates the funds? Who supervises these people? Next, you want to look for allies. Who else might care about this issue? Who else is doing work like this? Are there people in power who might join you? In our example, I'd want to look for any environmental student groups and maybe faculty who do work around pollution. I'd talk to environmental student groups at other schools and see if anyone has done anything like this and what they found successful. I also might look at local community groups like the local chapter of the Sierra Club and see if they had any insight or resources that might be helpful. Finally, you want to think about who might oppose your goal and come up with ways to counter their arguments. For example, some single-use plastic items like straws are crucial for people with certain disabilities, so I need to make sure there was a way they could still access them, or find out if there is a workable alternative. The administration might oppose my goal because there will be an increased cost for most of the alternatives, and reusable items have a big initial outlay of money to purchase, and then a cost to clean or replace is needed. I need to find a way to make that financial cost more reasonable and worth the additional burden. Now we know what we want to do, have some idea how we're going to reach our goal, and have identified who has the power in the situation, who can help us, and who might get in our way. Now we need to think about tactics. The goal is creating enough pressure to leverage your plan into reality, but not applying so much pressure that you turn people against you. Generally, you want to start by gathering your support, making people aware of your campaign, educating them regarding the issue, and recruiting people and groups to assist you. Once you have the strength of people behind you, you want to work on putting pressure on the person or people with power. The more people you have, and the more passionate they are, the more likely you are to get your target, the person or people in power, to act in the way you wish them to act. Usually you want to ramp up the pressure, from private meetings to public calls for action to shows of strength and gathering media attention. The more public an issue it is, the more pressure is applied to the target, and the more scrutiny they face if they don't act in the popular way. There are a range of tools we can use to apply pressure. The first one people usually think of is demonstrations or rallies, taking to the streets with signs and chants. Demonstrations are exciting, certainly. They can grab a lot of attention and create a sense of solidarity among your supporters. However, in terms of actually creating sustained pressure on people with power, they're not always the most effective tool. They're good when other avenues have been exhausted and those in power have been intractable. There are other things to try first, though. Petitions are a great way to show strength. The more people who are willing to say they support your idea, the more leverage you will have with people in power. You can do this online, in person, or a combination of the two. Tabling is when you set up a table somewhere public and provide a place for people to get informed about your issue. Tabling helps increase awareness, educates potential supporters, and allows you to build your network and gather petition signatures. Letter writing can be really powerful, particularly nowadays. It's a very different show of strength to see a lot of physical mail arrive rather than a lot of emails. Phone banking, when you gather people to call a list of other people, is a great way to get your message out and potentially add supporters to your cause. Canvassing, also known as door knocking, is when you go door to door talking to people. This allows you to get your message out to people, give people a chance to talk to you and ask questions, helps increase your supporters, and adds signature to a petition. It has the additional benefit of hearing from people the concerns they might have about your issue. This lets you go back to your plan and think about how to counter those arguments. A call to action is when you mobilize your supporters. This might be to write or call a particular person, boycott a particular product or location, or show up for a demonstration. These are best used when you want a more active show of strength, and should be used somewhat sparingly. Supporters can get burned out by too many calls to action, and will stop responding. They can be very effective, however. Lobbying is meeting with the people in power and explaining your thoughts on an issue and what you'd like from them. Lobbying can happen at almost any stage of a campaign. It's a good tool to start with. You can gauge how the person in power reacts and adjust your overall strategy then. It's also a good tool after a show of power. You have leverage now, and they're more willing to listen to you. Finally, there's fundraising. Many of these tactics have some financial costs, and you should plan for them. I'm not going to go into all the strategies for fundraising, but when done well, it can help you build your base of support, get your message out, and educate new potential supporters all at once. In our plastics example, I'd probably start with gathering support by tabling and gathering petitions from students, faculty, and staff. I take that information and use it to lobby the administration to change from single-use plastics to something compostable or reusable. If they weren't responsive, I'd probably up the pressure, contact all supporters, including alumni and village residents, and have them call and or write the administration. If there was still no movement, I'd probably hold a rally and make sure to send out press releases to all local media to try and get them involved also. We could also organize a sit-in, either someplace that would inconvenience a lot of people, or in the administration offices. Each time we have an event, it would need to increase the pressure until the administration was willing to make a change, or we had to admit defeat. And that does happen sometimes. You can't always get people to move. All you can do is try. I want to take a minute to talk about the role of the internet in organizing. As with most things, the internet has vastly changed organizing. We can get education information out faster, find new supporters easier, and mobilize supporters at a moment's notice. Hashtags have re-energized entire movements. People are able to engage around what they care about at any time, from anywhere. Some of the largest movements currently, like Black Lives Matter, the Women's March, and Me Too, and the Hong Kong protests, would not have been as large and successful without digital organizing, and may not have happened at all. There's a tendency to lean too much on digital organizing, though. The biggest problem is that for supporters, the cost of getting involved is cheap, which means it's easy to attract a large group of people, but hard to keep them when you hit a roadblock, or when you do some of the less glamorous work, like making phone calls, stuffing envelopes, or canvassing. There are also fewer relationships built. Your supporters don't really know you, and don't know each other. So again, they're less likely to stick around when the going gets tough. Finally, the work of movements tends to happen over years, whereas interest in a cause online tends to be measured in weeks. If you can't build a solid core of people who keep the work going month after month after month, you aren't going to be successful in pushing for your goal. I'm going to send you to watch a few other videos in this playlist now, all of which show different kinds of organizing, both community building and appealing to those in power. But before I do, I want to point out the group Indivisible to you, because the information and roadmap they've laid out is a great guide on how to leverage power in the most effective way. Yes, they are a partisan group, formed after the 2016 election to oppose Trump. But don't let that stop you if that's not how you lean politically. The tactics they laid out will work for any party, at any level of government, and for pressuring those outside of government as well.